Hey guys, this is my podcast, Inside the Range. I'm Nathan, and I'm here with Mercedes, my title partner. I'll let you introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. I am Mercedes Forslund. I'm with Legacy Title, and I am a local title expert here. We do residential and commercial, and I'm so excited for Nathan to ask me all the questions.
Oh,
He
awesome.
has.
Yeah, I guess my first question is everyone knows what a real estate agent is. Some people know what a loan officer is. I think less people know what an insurance agent does. And then title, I don't know. Maybe sometimes they're forgotten, but
Yeah.
a lot of people probably don't know what a title person does in a real estate transaction. What does what does a title person do, and how are they essential to a house closing or house selling?
Yeah, I always like to say that title is the silent partner of the transaction. And we're one of the most important pieces because what we do is we look at the actual title of the home. Is the seller who is selling the property, do they actually have the right to sell it? Are there any encumbrances, liens, things like that? Payoffs of mortgages, federal tax liens, water bills that haven't been paid, things like that.
So kind of like the back end work and stuff like that.
Yep. We look at every record that's been recorded at the county. We see if they are the only person or people who have interest to sell the property. Maybe there's been a death. Maybe it was left to all of the siblings and just one of the siblings are trying to sell it and take all of the proceeds. We catch those things and make sure that it goes according to plan.
All those like legal things that are on the back end. So you check like legal documents, or do you have to go to like what office do you go to, or how do you?
County.
The county.
We look at
Yeah, that's right,
all
you
the
said
county
that.
records. So
Yeah.
each parcel of land has a legal description that's attached to it. And then all of those important documents are recorded on that legal description. And then we can trace back to the beginning of time, usually when the government originally
Okay.
sold it to that very first person,
Okay. So there's like a lot of research involved in that, kind of a
Yeah.
lot of digging.
which I don't do that. That's
Okay.
exam and abstracting. There's a
Right.
whole department for that. And
Okay.
then they create a title commitment, which we use to close off of. So after the experts do all of that work, they'll give us a title commitment that says, okay, in order for us to issue clear title to the buyer, these are the steps that we need to take to ensure that. And we provide owner's title insurance policy as well as a lender's title insurance policy.
Okay.
So that lender's policy ensures that this new lender, let's say the buyer is utilizing you for financing.
Right.
Obviously, you and whatever bank that you're using wants to make sure that they're going to be in first lien position. If this
Right.
buyer, for whatever reason, defaults, they want to make sure that they're the first person in line to get paid. And so by going through the title commitment and clearing all of those items, making sure that there's nobody else out there,
Right.
that's what a lender's title insurance policy does. I ensure that you have first lien position with this buyer.
Okay. And then what's an owner's title policy?
It's optional. So the lender's is required, owner's is optional, and that protects that owner if, let's say, there's an encumbrance or some sort of a lien that was missed in the process. So sometimes things happen. There are humans in the industry. There's humans at the county that make mistakes.
Right. Right.
Sometimes people don't disclose everything that they should. Let's say a mechanic's lien, for example, where a mechanic or somebody, a carpenter or a plumber or electrician, performed work on the property and filed a lien. And the seller didn't disclose to us that there was work performed that they didn't pay for.
Yep.
And there was just this perfect period of time where between when we checked that and the closing,
I see.
that something
Right.
happened. An owner's title insurance policy would work to protect you with that. It would work to protect you. Let's say there's a random payoff out there or mortgage lien against the property that for whatever reason didn't come up during the search. That would be covered. Things like that.
What do you mean by covered? Like, does it like legally battle or?
Right. So
Okay.
an owner's title insurance policy is only a couple of $100s.
Yeah,
It's kind of
yep, more or
something
less, yeah.
you buy one time, and it works a little different than other insurance. So when you think about insurance like homeowner's insurance or car insurance, it's protecting you somewhere in the future if a hailstorm comes or a
Right,
car
right.
accident happens, things like that. Okay, cool, I'm insured. Where title insurance works actually backwards. So it's saying from the date of your purchase, it's protecting you backwards if there's
I see.
anything that happened. It's
Okay.
not going to protect you from anything in the future.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it's just a one-time fee. You buy it and then you don't think about it
And
unless you need it.
do you recommend most of the buyers should buy owner's insurance? I know everyone in my office is like, oh yeah, you gotta go get that just in case.
I mean, I typically recommend it. Yeah. The only time that I've been like, okay, maybe is if it's like a property that's been in the family for a period of time and, you know, it's continuing to be in the family, maybe then, but even then family members either lie or they're just not aware of what they're doing or what they have done.
Sure.
And there's a level of risk that's involved with that. So the owner's title insurance policy is typically a few $100s, where a quiet title action is going to be thousands of dollars and a lot of time.
Okay. Yeah. So would you recommend it on like a new construction purchase, you know, where no one obviously will have a lien on it before? Like what's the benefit of it on a new construction house?
Well, all those mechanics liens.
Oh, okay.
The potential for them. That typically builders take out loans, maybe multiple loans. They do draws. We want to make sure all of that's closed out. So that would be important as well. And the builder bought the land from somebody. And so there could be potential issues prior to the builder even buying the land that you would just have no idea about.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what's your like role on the title? So you work for a title company, Legacy Title, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your, I know you said there's a lot of different, you know, title, search and abstract. What are all different parts of it?
Yeah.
On title.
So I would say there's obviously like admin, front desk, order entry, people who answer the phones. That's kind of a piece of it. There is the closing team, which is usually a closer and an assistant or processor. The processor is the person that they're like the right-hand man. They're getting everything done. They're searching the records, calling the county, talking to the clients, making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, documents are drafted for closing, all of those very, very important steps along the way.
Right.
And then the closer is the escrow officer and notary that meets with the clients on the day of closing to verify your identity. You're of sound mind, sound body. You know what you're doing. You know why you're doing it, and you actually want to do it. You're not being coerced at all. And then notarizing those signatures and packaging it out. We also, as an escrow officer, fund the file. So all of the money in the transaction comes to us in one place, and then we disperse it out. So real estate agents get paid through us, lenders.
I think the brokerage gets paid through you guys as well.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So we handle all of those funds and making sure all the little cents are accounted for.
Okay. And is that the closer's responsibility, or is that kind of the whole team of what you're describing here?
Each team kind of works differently. Some closers really want to have their hands in their file, so when they get to the closing table, they have more knowledge, working knowledge of kind of what's going on in the file and the process that it's gone through and balancing those numbers. Some closers want to be focused on being at the table and in closings, and so they don't have the time to process in that way, and so then their assistant does it, and they just have, like I said, right hand man right there taking care of them, making sure everything's good. Yeah.
Okay.
And everywhere in between, there was a time when I was a closer and I processed all of my own files as well. So
so you did like kind of two roles on the same time?
Yep, because I didn't have a huge book of business at the time, so it was pretty easy for me to do both, and I wanted to learn more about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's always good to know. So how did you get into title? I mean, I can't say it. Same thing with the loan officer, right? As a young kid, no one's like, oh, I want to be a title agent when I grow up necessarily, right? So,
unless their mom or dad was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, what's your journey? How did you know you want to be a title person in like high school, or is that something that you sat at a shop and somebody came up to you and was like, hey, I think you'd be good at this, or?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. So I actually wanted to be a teacher since as long as I can remember. I remember being in first grade and I just was in love with my first grade teacher. And I was like, I am going to be a teacher.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay.
I would spend every night and every summer pulling out the easel and teaching my younger sisters math.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
They were ahead in everything. You're welcome. So, yeah, I was 19 and my friend's mom owned a title company and the courier position had opened up. So, at that
What's a
time,
courier do?
yeah, at that
Yeah.
time, there was somebody who went back and forth to every single office because it was all hard files. And so let's say that I'm in the Maple Grove office, but the file needed to close in Egan. And so I have to get all of those hard documents down to the Egan office
Okay.
for closing because the person in that office is covering for me.
Right.
And they need all of the hard documents to be able to fund and
When
close the
was this
file.
when you started? Like, what year was it? Was it kind of like computers haven't taken off
I
yet
don't
too
know,
much? Or
2011 maybe?
2011?
2011,
Okay. Oh, they're still doing
2012.
hard copies back in 2011.
Yeah,
back and
I'd say
forth.
this industry is really dictated by the county, which
Mm-hmm.
is run by the government, and the government's slow to get on trains.
Yeah.
So if that helps explain
Yeah.
anything, things are a lot more digital now, which is
Right.
nice.
That's super nice.
But yeah, at the time, there was somebody who had to run to every single office and distribute those hard documents and files, and then also run to the county. If you've ever worked with a borrower that has a bankruptcy, we're going to need a certified copy of Schedule C. Or sorry, not a buyer, a seller. Certified copy of Schedule C, just to make sure that the house was exempt and they actually do have the right to sell it. If you've ever worked with anybody who has a divorce, you know, those kinds of things have to be recorded to see what was decided with the property when they got
that's
divorced.
with the county. That's at the county, and then you as a courier would get those documents and
I
bring
would
them
go
to
get
this
certified
transaction.
copies of those documents, and then they
Okay.
just have to be recorded. And that's for sellers. So just ensuring that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed for the seller to be able to provide clear title to the buyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were 19. You were a courier. How did you get that job?
Yeah, so my friend's mom owned the company, and you know, I don't know, we're all hanging out, and she was like, "Oh, we need a courier this summer. Do you want to? It's just 3 months. It's a summer job. It's
Right.
super chill. You get to drive around all day long." So I'm like, "Okay, sounds good. I'll do it." And I got sucked in.
Okay.
Because by the end of the summer, she was like, "You did amazing. You know, I want you at the front desk. We actually have the front desk position opening up." So then I did that for a while. I started working in final policies, which I was like, I had no idea what title was. All I knew were there were a lot of people screaming that they needed everything yesterday. And I was like, "Do not worry. I will get
There you
that
go.
divorce decree by
Yeah.
2 p.m. I swear."
Yeah.
And I would just be rushing around to get it done.
Yeah.
And so then I started answering the phones and learning more about title through that, just based on people's questions and how I routed the calls. And then I started working in the recording department, scanning things in, looking at final policies. And I thought, okay, so there's something to do with houses here that's happening, and there's something to do with insurance that is happening.
Okay.
And
So you're just kind of figuring this out as you go along.
yeah, kind of
Okay.
learning as I'm
Yeah.
scanning
Yeah.
and reading, and I'm curious. And of course, eventually I ended up processing, you know, putting orders in, reading purchase agreements, clearing title, and ended up as a closer. And then now I do business development full time. And so my job is just to go around and make connections and help people build their business.
Awesome. Well, that's a pretty great role, right?
Yeah, I
What
love
did you
it.
enjoy about like being a closer? Do you have like a favorite role that you have? You probably like this role a lot, right?
Yeah, I would say business development is my favorite role thus far in title, because I get to utilize every step along the way that I've already had
Right.
to benefit other people. And I always like helping other people. Outside of that, being a closer was my favorite. And I loved the closing table. Before COVID, it was like a big party. There was everybody there, the buyers, the sellers, the agents, the loan officer, both title people.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
it was so fun after
Yeah.
you sign. I mean, sometimes it wasn't fun. Sometimes things were a little bit volatile, you know, if there was tension through the transaction.
Sure.
But my favorite moments were going to make copies and overhearing the seller talk to the buyer about, "Oh, this neighbor, you know, look out for them,"
yeah.
or this neighbor, they're going to be really good friends with you. They're going to love your dog, or
Yeah.
playing with your kids, or there's this quirk about the house that, "Oh, I forgot to tell you about that." And
Okay.
it
Yeah,
just
they're
was
just really
so
excited. Yeah.
loving. Like
Yeah.
this special thing that they had. I mean, a home purchase or a home sale is one of the biggest things
Oh,
you
yeah.
can do in your life.
Yup.
So I miss those conversations. It's different now.
Yeah, because I've never seen a seller at the closing table yet in all my transactions. So
Yeah, and you probably won't again
is it because of
unless
the
it's
COVID
family.
after, or what changed? So I didn't. Yeah, before there was just a bunch of people there. The sellers.
Yeah, it was like a big party.
Okay.
And yeah, so once COVID hit and there was lockdown and everybody's worried about exposures and things like that, all sellers really started pre-signing. It was kind of like this thing where it was like, why am I spending 1 to 2 hours at the closing table when it only takes me about 15 minutes to sign all the documents that I need to sign? So why do I need to be there? And then on top of this global pandemic, worrying about exposure, I don't want to go sit with strangers, not
Right.
in a room full of a lot of strangers. So sellers started pre-signing and we started overnighting those original documents to the buyer's closing, and it just became common practice. And I think it would be inconvenient to go back to the old way just for the fact of the seller's time.
Right. Because yeah, it
They're
does
not
take
really
like an
interested
hour.
in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're
And
just like
most people now just want to e-sign. They're like,
right.
do I even have to come in?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see a lot more digital closings? I haven't had one yet in my career, but I know that's an option that some
Yeah.
people go through. So
Yeah. Remote online notarization, or RON is what we call it.
okay.
And yeah, I have seen more of them. It gets a little bit tricky when there's lenders involved because the underwriter has to approve a remote online
Right.
notarized
Yup.
mortgage
Yup.
and things like that.
Yup.
But for sellers, it's usually no big deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you came through that whole title journey. Where did you like decide that elementary school teacher wasn't your thing, or did you kind of wrestle with it for a bit?
That's
Like,
a
what happened there?
That's a good question. I was in my last year of schooling and I started doing student teaching, and I just got really overwhelmed. There were like 42 kids in this class.
Yeah,
one
I was the same
teacher.
way. Yeah, I was also student teaching. I had the same experience.
Was
as
that
you.
your experience too?
Yeah, I mean they had. I was way later than you. It was after COVID, but they stacked like 30 kids, and like a few of them didn't speak English. 3 of them had special
Yeah.
like needs, and
Yeah.
a few of them had like behavioral issues. And I'm just like, oh man, I I just want to teach, and like I'm playing like
Yeah.
5, 6 different roles here.
Yes.
Right, and you're
Yeah.
staying like 12-hour days, and it's just like I was really stressed. Is that kind of what you felt, or
Yeah, I was burned out and I realized that I cared too much. I remember very vividly, I was working with kids who needed extra help on their math. And one of the kiddos was like telling me this story about how his mom worked 3 jobs and so he didn't get to see her very often,
Oh,
and his
man.
dad was actually in prison.
oh man, yeah, those
And
are tough.
how the landlord was yelling at him to get off of their roof the night before or something like that. And it just broke my heart. I was like,
What grade were you doing for student teaching?
3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Little kids.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I
that's
have a
disheartening.
7-year-old now. She's going into 2nd grade. And it's insane to me to look at her and think, oh, that poor kiddo,
Right.
And I realized like, oh no, because I wanted to take him home. And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I can handle that
Right.
day in, day out. And then on top of that, not having a ton of autonomy over lesson plans.
You didn't, huh? So tell me more about that. So when did you student teach? Because I was definitely post COVID. Were you're probably pre COVID, right?
Yeah, like 2012.
2012.
Yeah, a long time ago. I'm older than you.
Okay, so I mean, like I just saw a lot of shifts that happened around COVID, right? With like certain topics that were taught in class and things
Yeah.
like that. But when you were having it too, what did you notice? I'm just really curious because it's actually really cool that I have the same
I love that we have that
elementary
connection.
school background
really
connection
cool.
and then going into real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually curious what brought you into wanting to be a teacher? Did you have a special experience with the
Oh
teacher?
yeah, so I was 18 years old and I had no idea what I wanted to do, right? It's just crazy to me how some people, I'm actually envious that some people like, oh, I want to be an engineer, or I want
That's
to be
how
a
I always
dentist.
feel,
And they're
too.
like, yep, yeah, and they
Like
do it. Yeah, but actually, sometimes people think they want to be an engineer, then they get to it, and then they're like, oh man, I don't know if I really want it, but then they're all this debt, they sunk all this time, and
They're
like
committed.
Yeah, they're committed. They're like, all right, we just gotta do this for like 40 more years. We're
40
good.
more years, just my life.
Yeah, right. So I mean, it's both ways, but no, some people like know what they want. I want to be a vet, and they just do it. And then you're just like, I'm just like, I have no idea what I want to do. I don't. And then my parents are like, you should be a doctor. Like, you're good at science, you're good at math. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, fine. But then like the third year comes, and then I'm just like, I don't know if that's just for me. I really think about like, and I have nothing against doctors. I have a lot of respect for them, but it's just like so, I don't know, like so serious. I mean, obviously you gotta be, right. And then it's just like,
You want to have fun too.
yeah, I kind of want to have fun, and,
Yeah.
and it's just like a lot of schooling. Like I was kind of going to go through college, and I just didn't want to go through like more school where I'm studying like 12 hours a day, and I'm just like for something that I didn't want, right?
I think that's the big point there.
Yeah.
Is it's a lot of sacrifice
It
for
is.
something that you
If
don't
you
even want
what's
to
at
do.
the top, then like you're gonna grind, you're gonna go like kind of what we're doing, right? Like this,
Yeah.
it's a grind for what we're doing because we want what's at at the top. But I just didn't feel like I felt like that was more my parents' dream than my dream. So then I'm just like, I call my dad and I'm like, hey, Dad, I don't really want to be a doctor anymore. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. And he's like, do
I
you
hadn't
like
thought that far.
he's like, do you like math? And I'm like, because I did like, I like basic math. I'm good at like basic pre-calc stuff. But then once you get to the advanced stuff, I'm like, not really. And he's like, do you like writing? And I'm like, not really. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, well, why don't you try pharmacy? You get to interact with people. It's still science. It's still in kind of that medical field. And I'm like, sure. Maybe that's it, right?
Yeah.
And then I get into my faith at this time, which is a different story. But then I go back home. I work as a pharmacy technician. And it's nothing against pharmacies, but I just not meant for a role where it's basically, you scoop pills into a bottle, you kind of alphabetize drugs.
I'll be honest too, the lights freak me out a little bit.
If
I had to be
pharmacy?
under those fluorescent lights like
Is it
all
like these
day,
lights? Or
every
I don't
day.
remember what it looks like.
I don't know, just
Just the
pharmacy
pharmacy
lights. They
lights.
freak me out.
I never had that issue,
well, good.
but it's the repetitiveness. You just go, hey, what's your name? Okay, what's your birthday? Oh, what prescription you pick up? Okay, here you go. Like 3 or 4 hours of that. 3 or 4 hours of bugging people. I don't know. They wanted me to call people like 9 a.m. on Saturday to, hey, your prescription's ready to pick up a week ago. And then some people would just get pissed like, oh, like
don't
why are
bother
you
me.
calling me? I'm like,
Yeah.
why are we calling people at 9 a.m. on a Saturday? And I'm just like, I don't know. It's just fun. But then I just didn't feel like the pharmacy for me, even though you get paid well. And then I got at the same time, so basically to answer your question, I got a job working as a summer camp counselor with kids. And I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
I got paid to go to Grand Slam Twins games. Like I
Yeah.
would never be the guy to sit like on the playground on the side and just like watch people have fun and be like, walk or don't climb up the slide. Like what a boring way to spend like 8 hours. I'm running around with the kids. I'm like, because I have a lot of younger brothers and sisters, and I used to do this all the time when they were younger, play hide and seek, play freeze tag, play kickball. And honestly, I was never like the best athlete growing up. So like when I was playing with the kids, like basketball, like I'm LeBron James on the court if I want to be, right? If I want to score, I'm going to score. Soccer, was terrible at soccer, but
But
with
you
young kids, I'm like, yeah, if I want to score, I'm going to score, right?
Yeah.
And I'll take it easy for sure. But there are times where I just kind of go off, get a girl, and be like, oh, sweet. And then kind of go back. But no, I mean, it's just so much fun to like, I don't know if your experience was the same, but I just like loved like being out with the kids, playing with them. And then they look up to you so much. And then you can set like positive examples of like, hey, sharing is caring, like those basic stuff where like, be nice and you kind of guide them. But you're not like being like, oh, yeah, you must share. Otherwise, it's just like, hey, Mr. Nathan's super cool. And he says sharing is cool. So sharing is cool, you know? And it's just kind of like, because they look up you so much, you have that like authority and power. And then you just are kind of like, one of them though, almost like you're not a kid, but you're not like, it's not like a me versus you thing. It's like an us thing, right?
Yeah.
And I really felt that bond.
Like collaborative.
Yes. And I just felt that bond, and I'm just like, I think it's my goal to be a teacher. And then I got I went to preschool, and I taught preschool I took a year off from school and taught preschool.
How was that?
It was
I've
so
heard
much
it's
fun.
like herding cats.
Herding cats. Honestly, like I was an assistant and stuff for a bit, so I just kind of went with whatever. But once I got my own room, I kind of did things like my way. It was like kind of like herding cats sometimes, but it can be herding cats sometimes when they stick like random people in your room. Like they have like, oh, here's 3 kids today, and then you're like, oh, I mean, hi guys, And then they just gotta like mess up the room, and you're like, oh wait, hold up,
We have routine and structure.
Yeah. So once you get the routine and structure, and like I love positive reinforcement, I try to make everything so fun. Like lineup times, I play like this Have you ever heard of the game Plants vs. Zombies at all?
No. Tell
Okay.
me.
Oh, dude, there's like this, like, it's just like you have plants that you plant on one side and there's zombies that come attack it. It's like a kind of a tower defense game.
Okay.
But anyways, there's like this like kind of little, it's a cartoony game. It's like meant for kids. And there's like this one like Jack in the Box that like he goes like dun 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 and then it explodes.
Okay.
So I would like have kids line up and I'd be like, everyone needs to line up before it explodes. Otherwise, I don't know. I think I made some sort of small thing like you got to sit out for a minute or something like that.
Okay.
So then they'd be like, dun 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 dun, and everyone's like, oh,
Like running. Yeah.
All I had to do was play the music, and they're like, oh, it's cleanup time, and then they like go out and line up to go and play. But I just love like having fun with them. So like it is like herding cats, but once you get a routine and structure down, and they know that you love them, and I
Yeah.
think that's what it was. Like they knew like Mr. Nathan loves me. Like yeah.
Yeah, that's so special.
You just, it's just like it all works out. And I'm honestly looking at it with rose-colored glasses because there are some days where I'm just like, I was super stressed, or one kid,
it's
because they're
hard.
kids, right? Like
Kids are
sometimes they
hard.
act out,
Yeah.
and you know they have sometimes, you know, if their parents are going for divorce or something, like they go to stuff that it's not their fault, and it's hard on the kid. You know, they're 4 and they don't see their mom or dad
they
as
don't
much.
know how to process that.
Yeah, so then they, you know, there are some tough days where, you know, kind of that sleeps in the classroom. And it's not the kid's fault, but then it just kind of sleeps in. They affect the other kids, and it's just like, yeah, there's some days where that kind of affects it for sure. But for the most part, yeah, I think that's how I got in the kids. I taught preschool. I'm like, I love this so much. Like, this is my calling to be with kids. And then I just like went with it, and I taught school, and then kind of like where you're saying, so I kind of want to hear your story after this, but like once I start student teaching, it was a lot more than teaching. Like you're kind of dealing with like some political stuff that they want you to do, and then you know it's budget cuts, so now like there's no as many special ed teachers or English language teachers and things like that. Like the resource teachers, right? And like you said, they stack a lot of kids. Like I had like almost 35-year-olds. Like I came from like 10, and 10 4-year-olds is like, yeah, that's a solid number, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot sometimes, but that's solid.
Yeah.
Now imagine tripling that, right? And now all of a sudden you're like, oh geez, and it's just like I kind of cared a lot.
And it's just 1 year later.
Yeah, and you want to have the best at personal relationship with every single kid.
Yeah.
And with 30, it's just hard to have 30 personal relationships.
Yeah.
Right. And then like the last thing I'll say is like that I didn't like as much with teaching is like I love positive reinforcement in my classroom when I was a preschool teacher. Meaning like, you know, if one kid's misbehaving, maybe I won't give him as much attention, right? And then he's like, oh, you know, in order to get his attention, I should be doing what I'm supposed to be doing and join the rest of the class. Whereas if you have 30 and a couple kids are misbehaving, they kind of like causing ruckus, you kind of have to
Address it. Yeah.
And that takes time away from the kids who in my head
attention.
deserve my attention.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon they're like, oh, well, if I want to get attention, I'll act out. And then it just causes like, yeah. And then it's also 30. It's a lot harder to juggle, especially when you stack like kind of the kids with more that need, you know, a resource teacher or need more individualized attention. It's just, I got really stressed with it, and that's what caused me to ultimately kind of like, oh man, I don't know, about it. But what about you? What's your experience? How did you decide? You said you were in first grade. You were like,
in first grade. When I was in first grade, I was absolutely in love with my first grade teacher.
Yeah,
and she's the reason why I wanted to be a teacher. But yeah, then when I actually got into it, it was not being able to plan my own lessons because of the No Child Left Behind Act. They want to make sure everybody can pass the test so that they can continue to get funding.
So what do you mean you couldn't plan your lessons? Like, did you have like a preset lesson that you had to teach?
Yep.
Okay.
It's just like, here's your lessons for the year.
Wasn't that good? Because like that's less lesson planning for you, or
I wanted to have and this is maybe personal to my personality, but I want to have my hand in creating something.
Yes,
I don't.
Absolutely. Okay.
I want to have my spin on it, my touch.
You couldn't. You couldn't even put your own spin on it.
Adjust it. No, not at the school that I was at. No.
Okay.
And maybe I was a little short-sighted instead of just saying, okay, I just got to get through this portion and then I can choose where I go, and maybe it won't be like that. I think it was the politics, like you're saying. It felt like a kind of a big game.
Yeah.
And then these kiddos that just really needed a lot of extra love and attention, and how much it broke my heart to see kids in situations like that and only be able to help to a certain degree. Otherwise, further than that was inappropriate, right? Like you
What do you
toe
mean?
a line. As a teacher, you toe a line of what's
Yes.
appropriate
Yes.
for you to intervene on or comment on or help with
Right.
and what's not. And I wanted to be able to do more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess like what was the straw that broke the camel's back? Was there a turning point, or is it just like,
Yeah,
oh, I
that
got
conversation I had with the kiddo.
this? Okay.
Yeah, I left, I cried, and I thought, I'm just not going back.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were student teaching. Was that one of your last days, or do you just not come back to the
Yeah, that
student
was my
teaching
last
program?
day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So then was that like in the spring, and then you went to the summer and you got your job, or where was this aligned to where your title company like fit in?
I don't really remember. I think that maybe the courier position had kind of happened, or maybe it happened kind of right after that. It's all kind of around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like what's your favorite thing about title? I mean, do you still work with kids, or do you have you have a daughter that you work, I mean, obviously you interact with her a lot,
Yeah.
but
I have my 7-year-old daughter who's amazing. I
yeah.
love her so much. I've volunteered quite a bit at her school in her classroom. I go in and I read books. I've done that.
Okay.
They have
Awesome.
this whole art program that you can do. I did multiple art projects came in, and there's a lot of volunteer opportunities. So I feel like I've been getting my fix through her.
Yeah.
And then, loads of play dates with friends
Yeah.
and things like
There
that.
you
So
go.
that's so fun. And then I did for a period of time kind of do some humanitarian work with kids, and that was fun too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I mean, there's no like kids in your title industry, right? Obviously. That's
Yeah,
kind of a
not really.
different case.
I do get super excited when I was a closer and kids would bring, or people
Parents
would bring
bring
their
kids,
kids,
yeah.
to the closing. I would be like, ooh,
Oh
yay.
yeah, I haven't
like,
counted that yet. Well, I had a baby, but nothing
Yeah.
like a nice little
like
kid.
kids
Yeah.
are like, ooh, do you want something to color with?
Right.
Or can I get you a snack and kind of like be a friend?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So as a title person, do you kind of have to? Is it kind of like the same as real estate and loan officer, where you kind of have to build your book of business, or how is it like that on the title side of things in terms of just getting your business off the ground? Are you kind of
Yeah.
like salaried more? Is it commission based, or what's the?
That's a good question. I like to say everybody makes their own deal. So it's different depending on the title company that you're at, what kind of a deal you're going to have the opportunity to make. Some positions are just completely salaried, and it doesn't depend on what volume you do. You can do, 13 closings in a month, or 30 whatever, or 70, and you're going to make the same amount. Other places or opportunities would be, only commission. You're an independent contractor. You're completely in charge of building your book of business. And kind of everywhere in between, where
So
I'd
there's a lot of
say
different pay structures then.
probably most common is some intermingling of the two,
Right.
where you're like
Base
some
and
portion
commission.
of base salary with whatever bonuses. It also depends. There are certain title companies that are affiliated or in-house with like certain brokerages or lending offices and things like that. And obviously, if you're in-house, then you don't have to build as big of a book of business outside of that. So that's an option for people if that feels really good to them. And then there are title companies like Legacy Title, where I work, is independent, and we're not affiliated with any brokerage.
So you got to drive your own book of business then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all about making connections.
So walk me through what's your first couple years like. So I'm still in my the beginning of my second year, and it's been a grind for sure, right? So I kind of want to hear what's your end of things, like how you got started. I mean, you got courier and stuff. You worked in title for how many years before you became like a closer?
Let's see. I started as a courier when I was 19, and then in my 20s, I kind of did some processing, and I became a closer shortly after my daughter was born. So maybe I was like 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's exactly my
Timelines
age,
are
yeah.
difficult for me. I don't know if you can
really?
tell. I'm like, time is weird.
It does
like, when
kind
does
of
stuff
blur.
happen? Yeah, I don't know.
After you like turn 21, like my sister turned 21. I celebrated her birthday like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, That was me, like like a couple of years ago. You know, like I'm all the way to
It's
27 now,
crazy.
and I'm approaching 30, and I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh, like I
Yeah.
don't know, I can't tell you how
30s
weird
are
that feels.
great if you're wondering.
Yeah.
I'm loving
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
Better, they're a lot more stable than your 20s.
Right. Right.
I think that your 20s are all about getting to know,
Who you are.
yeah,
Yeah.
who you are, yourself, what you like, what you don't like. And I feel like your 30s are finding your nose.
Finding your nose, like,
Yeah,
no,
like
I don't want to
now
do
that I
that.
know myself,
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
going to do this, or now that
Oh, I
I
see.
know that
Okay.
I like this or I don't like this, then I'm going to adjust things accordingly.
So it's kind of refining yourself here, but like
That's what I
20s is
think.
probably defining, like developing yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I think too. Yeah, it's a huge thing just growing up from college, but it's all a blur, right? I
Yeah.
think. I mean, I you know, like 23, I can't even remember. You know,
Yeah.
it just all kind of blurs together.
I feel like I blink and like 2 weeks go by.
I
And I'm
know,
like,
and some days are long, but the weeks
how
are
did that
short,
happen?
right?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of how it
Isn't
is?
that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. So I don't know if you remember, but like, what were your first like year as a closer? Did you have a book of business that you had, or did you go out and just like ask everyone for coffee, or go out to events, or how did
Yeah.
you do you make a lot of cold calls like I did? Or?
I've done everything. So when I first started, I got lucky. I had been processing for
Right.
a closer.
Okay.
And she had said, you know, I'm moving up in position and I want you to take over my book of business.
Oh, boom.
So, yep, became a closer and I immediately had a small book of business from her, which
what
was
did
amazing.
was she a business developer? What you're doing right now, or what did she?
No,
end up
she
doing?
actually moved up into management at that time.
okay.
And so she didn't have as much capacity to do closings and do that role of being a closer when she needed to be really focused on management, managing the employees and looking at higher level, you know, production and
Okay.
business planning and like, okay, these
Okay.
are our big goals and this is what we're shooting for. And those kinds of things. So yeah, I got lucky kind of taking over her book of business and she taught me a lot. And then, I just started doing connective things, coffees, like you said, events, meeting people. Like I said, back before COVID, everybody would be at the table and I built a decent amount of my book of business just from that, just from my presence at the table, being at the table,
Yeah.
being a good closer.
Right. Just a friendly person in general. Yeah.
Yeah, like if I'm doing the seller side and there's a loan officer and another agent there, and maybe their experience wasn't that with the person that they were working toward. Now they've seen me in action. They're curious about that. So maybe they'd reach out to me after closing. I never reached out to people in that way because that's kind of icky, but people definitely reached out to me after, hey, I really liked your presence at the table. Let's work together.
Okay. And you're like, heck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's great. That's an easy sell. Being
Right.
able to just perform and then get business from that. That's awesome. Post COVID, I was a marketing closer.
So when did you move up from, you were a marketing closer?
Right.
Okay. Is that different from a closer at all? Or?
Yeah. So I would say generally a closer is not like actively building their business.
Oh, really?
You know,
Okay.
it depends on the type of closer, right?
Okay.
But just a general closer probably has their book of business built. They're just looking at maintaining.
I see.
If the company has somebody who's doing business development, then they're going to rely on that person to provide connections for them. A marketing closer is somebody who's actively building their book of business and they're actively marketing themselves, and they're not relying on somebody else or just maintaining what they have. So that's kind of what I consider where maybe a closer is a marketing closer, but they're just saying they're a closer.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
So so the closer in your definition isn't the one that's like actively marketing. It's just kind of taking care of their existing clients and loan officers, realtors, and
Yep. And if an opportunity comes, it comes, but they're not like, okay, looking at this month, how many new clients do I need? What am I going to do to get them? How many one-on-ones do I need? What events am I going to? What networking groups am I a part of? You know, looking at all of those details or cold calling people. Just a general closer probably isn't doing all of that because they're probably busy enough just with their book of business that they have and closings that they just don't have time to market themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that you became a marketing closer.
Yeah.
Did that mean you want to increase your book of business? business, or do you move on
Yes.
to a different?
I was
Okay.
hungry.
Okay.
Yeah, so I started doing all of those things, which I think has really helped me now in my position with business development. I've already kind of done some of those things that you need to do to build business, and I've built some habits where I almost got to this point where it was like I loved being in the closing and I loved being at the closing table, but it was almost like the two roles were like competing, if that
Oh,
makes
really?
sense.
Okay.
Where I needed to either just be a closer or I needed to either just do business development because I was getting so busy with both,
I see.
which probably means I was doing a good job
Yeah.
marketing myself because my book of business was being built, but I had so much fun building my book of business that I didn't want to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so then is that how you kind of transition to the role of being a permanent business development role, and have someone else focus on the closing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What led you to that kind of final step then? I mean, you were marketing, was that kind of basically what you're saying? You had so much fun that you're like, I think I'll just do this full time and
Yeah, I actually took a little bit of a hiatus where I had an opportunity to kind of pursue a passion project, if you will, with my friend. She had an adventure company. She was doing
what company?
humanitarian work, an adventure company.
An adventure company. What's
Yeah.
an adventure? What are you doing? Selling adventures?
Yeah, so
like adventures.
she had this unique idea of adventure with a purpose. And so she would go ahead and go to other countries, make connections with the locals, figure out all those little unique hideouts and spaces where as a tourist,
Other countries you said?
yeah, like
Okay.
Thailand, Costa Rica, Greece, Mexico, she's been. And make connections with the locals, figure out these little known spots that tourists don't know about, but the locals know about, and kind of curate this adventure experience. And then at the same time, she would look at local nonprofits in the area and what they're doing to help build the community, and specifically working with human trafficking. So her idea was to adventure with a purpose. So you sign up with me, we're going to go on this adventure, and I promise you're going to have the time of your life, a time that you wouldn't have otherwise, 3-4 days of that in the beginning. And then, a few days of just hard labor of helping these organizations with whatever their greatest need is at this moment. I've helped build bathrooms, a woodworking shop. I have mixed a lot of concrete, which is super fun.
Yeah.
Playing with the kids, hanging
Yeah.
out with the kids, whatever it is. We've done like art murals and brought water filters. It's just like whatever the greatest need is, how can we show up and how can we help? And then after that, there's like this decompression of like just relaxation, whatever that looks like. So I thought it was a super cool idea. Obviously, I love kids. I am humanitarian at heart. I want to help. I always want to help. And then I get to also travel the world. Like, what? That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took the opportunity with that.
You stopped doing your title work for a little bit?
Yeah, for about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. When was this when you went on this passion project on
That
adventure?
was 2021, I think.
So just after, or just, I guess, in the midst of COVID still, because there were
Yeah.
still a lot of those regulations in 2021.
Yeah.
Okay. So you stepped back from title, you kind of explored that. What did that look like for you?
I did that, and I worked for a local cleaning company as well. I was a manager there and kind of helped her scale her business so that she could step away from it. The two of those guys were cousins. So the owner of the adventure company and the owner of the cleaning company are cousins.
Okay, so you helped with both of them? Mm-hmm. And where is the cleaning company? You said local. Was it here or is it?
Yeah, Elk River, local to Elk River, like northwest suburbs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were doing that. And then what was your role with the adventure company? Just helping plan the adventures or?
I would say like network marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've always been a marketer at heart, kind of going around
I
meeting
think
people
so,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
I like to say connector. Like I just
Connector?
want to connect
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really fun part about the job, right? I mean,
Isn't
I
it?
think so.
Yeah.
Going out playing golf or getting some food or going to those
Yeah.
events and stuff. I think it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And getting to know people and know their heart and like what
Yes.
drives them.
Yeah.
And then being able to be that person that knows a lot of people. So they're like, oh my gosh, I need an insurance agent, or I need a plumber, or I need like this random connection.
Right.
It's like, I got you.
Right.
Because I talk to people all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess what do you enjoy most about your role right now? You probably kind of said it already indirectly, but I mean, what's your favorite parts of being a connector? You said, getting to know people, like who they are. I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's my
sure.
favorite part. Getting to
Okay.
know people, their heart, what drives them to do a good job, and why they want to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess, yeah. So how did you transition from the passion project? What happened to that passion project of yours? Did it kind of just be on the back burner, or?
Yeah, things kind of pivoted, and she took a direction more towards corporate leadership trips. And that just, I mean, I love leadership development and those things, but I didn't think that was exactly where I wanted to be. I really like doing the humanitarian work. And it was just a good opportunity for me to reevaluate things, and Title called me back. Yeah.
Okay, so you reached back out to them. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm looking for you to get back in, but you didn't want to be back in the closer role at all, or you prefer
Yeah, we
to
kind of
be-
talked about it, like, because right before I had taken my hiatus, like I said, it was like, I kind of either need to be a closer or be a
Yeah.
business development person.
Yeah.
And it was kind of, I couldn't do both. And so we had that conversation when I came back, and I think mutually decided that maybe business development would be a good opportunity.
Okay.
And I think it's turned out well.
Yeah, you seem to be doing a great job.
Yeah,
So
thank
hats
you.
off to you. So do you is your role be able to kind of market for the closers, so the closers do not have to market then in your company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, if they want to market themselves, that's helpful because it builds business for the company as a whole.
Right.
But yeah, I have a spreadsheet of every closing team and all these things about them. So every time I meet with somebody, I call it love matching. So I get to know you, like I said, your heart, who you are, your business, and like the type of clients that you work with, the area that you work in, all of those kind of niched things. And then I can look at my spreadsheet and pick the perfect closing team for you specifically. And then I provide that information to them, and I help facilitate that connection and relationship through the first few transactions.
Okay. Yeah, and then does that usually just the one closer works with that loan officer you matched up with for
Yeah.
after that? You kind of
Yeah. If it works, Yeah. If I've love matched correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you pretty much love what you do, right? Is there any times where it's kind of stressful, or is it pretty a stress-free job? I don't know if that ever exists for a stress-free job per se, but
Yeah. I think sometimes stress is a choice. And at least for me, when I'm feeling stressed out, it's because I'm resisting whatever's around me or what's happening, and I need to adjust my attitude.
okay.
Yeah.
So tell me more about that. Is there a time where you said, "Oh, I'm stressed," and then you kind of just look at a different perspective, and then you kind of were able to be not as stressed, or
Yeah, like if I'm stressed and feeling overwhelmed, like there's so much to do or something like that. I have an opportunity to choose to be grateful for the abundance that's in my life in this moment, and maybe look at how I can prioritize things better, or how I can better manage my time, or how I can spend time in the morning. I can time block and say, okay, this is my time that I'm protecting no matter what. I'm going to go to the gym, or maybe it's in the evening where it's like, I'm going to check out and take a bath, or whatever that looks like for me in that moment, what it feels like I need. But when I'm stressed, that's a really good indication for me to pause, take a breath, and check in with my body and see, what do I need most in this moment? And then give myself that. Sometimes, I would say most of the time, it's just a few breaths. My expectations of myself tend to be quite high. And I'm the only one putting that pressure on me. I'm doing a good job. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I experience sometimes too. I put a lot of pressure on myself. Sometimes oh, I gotta get this closing disclosure out to my client right now, and then I'm take a deep breath, well, another 10-15 minutes is not going to be the end of the world. Just take your time, just slow down, and kind of what you're saying, right? Because a lot of times with this industry, it's very fast paced, and then you get kind of
Everyone
And then-
needs everything yesterday.
Yeah.
But you didn't know
Yeah,
yesterday.
right?
Like, oh shoot, everything's an emergency. My joke when I was a closer was that I would like literally like take a breath, like, okay, here's the deal. We're not working with human lives. We're not surgeons.
Yes.
You know,
Yup.
we're not brain surgeons,
Yup.
heart surgeons. Like, I promise it's going to be a matter of inconvenience and money, which are both solvable. And we're going to try to solve it with the least amount of damage.
And
And it's
obviously
okay.
you don't want that to happen, right? But I mean,
Oh no, but you
no.
can't control
Yeah.
things sometimes.
Yeah.
Even all of the professionals within a transaction sometimes can't control. I had one where the sellers were getting divorced, and the night before closing, the missus went into the property and like $15,000 worth of damage, and the buyers showed up.
Oh no, that's
Right.
Whoa.
Final
Wait, so she
walkthrough.
damaged the house on purpose just to get out of spite or
She
what?
was, and I don't know the situation. You know, I don't
For
know
sure,
any
yup.
of the personals, but yeah, she was really upset about something, and it was about $15,000 worth of damage. And so, and it was a morning closing too, so that happened overnight. They show up for the final walkthrough at like 8 a.m. They're at my office by 9:30, just calling contractors. That was my entire morning, was, you know, adjusting and facilitating, helping. You know, I don't know if this deal is going to go through
Right,
now.
right.
And that has nothing to do with any of the professionals in the
Right,
transaction,
right.
right? But it is a matter of inconvenience and money. And so what can we do to mitigate the damage to the best of our ability? And they came to an understanding, they came to an agreement. She ended up having to pay for it out of her proceeds. You know, they were splitting. So it was, the proceeds were being split 50-50, and then $15,000 came out of hers to go to the buyer to pay for everything that she damaged. In the end, she only ended up hurting herself, which is a little bit silly, but you know, it was solvable. It's
Right,
okay. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, basically what you said, I remember I went to so one of my lenders is United Wholesale Mortgage. We
Yeah.
flew out there. It was like an all Edge thing. I met other people from Edge, and there was another loan officer who used to be in, I think, the Army or the Navy. I can't remember, but he was like just telling us, he's like, yeah, a lot of people, you know, real estate people, like, or, you know, everyone in this industry, they like kind of freak out. They act like it's life and death. And then he's like, I've actually been through like deployment. I know what life and death is about. I
Yeah.
come back here and it's like, yeah, it's just like, I mean, obviously we want to do everything we can to protect our clients' money and everything, but no, at the end of the day, like you said, no one's going to die. You know, no one's going to lose their life, or you're not going to lose your life or anything like that. So it's good to put that into perspective when you kind of
Yeah.
like get really stressed, or you're like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, right? Because
And I feel like it's my job or our job as professionals to kind of almost like parents do. Like you hold that calm space
Right.
for kids or
Right.
teachers, you know, you hold
Yup.
that calm space for somebody who's having some sort of an emotional reaction,
Mm-hmm.
but it's our job to like use our executive functioning skills
For
and
sure.
just get it done.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if clients never call you, right? But you probably have people that call you on the phone that are very stressed and emotional, because like sometimes
Yeah.
I have that as well. And it's just, I think the teaching background does a good job of being able to kind of sympathize with what they're kind of going through, and then kind
Yeah.
of get to a solution together where then they kind of, you know, leave the phone call feeling like not as emotional anymore, or like
Yeah.
feeling a lot better about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not working directly with clients anymore, but my clients are the industry professionals. And so I always tell people, like, even if are you having a bad day, just call me. I'll make you smile. Like, we'll talk
Yeah.
about it. We'll figure it out. You know, even if it's like your closings with somebody else or something, but you're just like, oh, I know Mercedes is going to give me a pick me up.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, call me. It's
Yeah.
going to be okay. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome to hear. So I guess like when you're not closing or doing title work marketing, what's your one of your favorite like hobbies, or how do you kind of have fun outside of work or decompress? What's your life outside of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. You have to tell me what your hobbies are too.
Okay.
Af.
Yeah, my hobbies, I love like being active. I love being outside, and I love this job because a lot of like the hobbies that I do blend with work. So like, I don't know who said this. I mean, people probably say this all the time, but it says do what you love, do what you enjoy. You never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel that way a lot. And especially with kids too, like that job or summer camp, I never felt like I was working.
That's so
I'm like,
awesome.
I'm getting paid to go to the Twins game. Like, this is sweet.
Yeah.
No, but I love like mountain biking, skiing, golfing, spike ball, being on the lake, skiing in the wintertime. I just love being outdoors.
Okay.
It's tough for me. Like I love going to the gym too, but it's just tough for me I don't know, maybe I'm making an excuse, but it's just tough for me to lift a bunch in the summertime and then just seeing like bright sun, nice sunny day outside, and you're kind of inside and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'd rather be outside right now and like
Yeah.
biking or doing something. But anything active, I just really enjoy, and just hanging out with friends. And like you said, I love networking, meeting people, connecting, right? And it's just, the fact that it benefits my job too. Like, it's just like, oh, I'm working, I'm out late on Friday. Oh, I'm working, yeah, I love anything outdoors. How about you? Is there anything that we have similar at all? Like,
Yeah, I don't think I'm as active as you are. But
you
I
get
do
outside,
I
right?
do
Yeah.
love being outside.
Yeah.
I love being in nature and
Yeah.
like communing and connecting with nature.
What does that look like for you? Like,
Like,
hugging trees? I know it sounds
literally
weird.
hugging
I do
trees.
hug trees sometimes.
I do
I know
too.
people think it's weird, but
Yeah.
it's living. So it's like
It's so connected, and
yeah.
it's way older than I am. Usually the
Right.
trees that I'm hugging,
Yeah.
they've seen. Sometimes I just like to hug them and think like what they've seen, what they've been through, because there's been so much change in the last like 100, 200 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Like,
oh, yeah.
it's just
Like internet and
wild to
everything
think
like
about,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literal tree hugger. That's me. Yeah, hiking, kayaking.
Kayaking's fun. I haven't been doing that this year, but that's a lot
yeah.
of fun. Paddleboarding?
I haven't tried that
Oh, you
yet, but
haven't?
it's on my list.
Okay.
I actually just went golfing for the first time too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I'll show you a video after.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
hilarious.
Okay.
It was hilariously entertaining, but
Who do
it's
you go
checked
golfing
off
with?
now. It was with my networking group. So work, marketing.
Did you ever hit a ball before?
I've been to Top Golf like a
Okay.
couple times.
Did you know how to swing? It's really hard. It's like kind of a steep learning curve, actually.
Yeah, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
hard. I mean, I was awful, but I wasn't like, I did hit the ball.
There we go.
So like I swung it and I hit it.
There you
That
go.
happened.
Yeah.
It maybe went up in the air and almost hit me in the head, but
Oh,
I
really?
hit it.
You can just take as many strokes as you want, right?
Right. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But it was fun. And my first time's done. And now I just get to practice. I know what's expected during the game. So that's cool. Yeah. Other than that, I love painting. Anything
Okay.
like art is where I'm at. I love
Do
dancing.
you like graphic design at all? I'm not like I suck at painting and drawing, but I love
Okay.
like kind of designing stuff on Canva or something where I don't need
I
my
do
fine,
like that a little bit. Yeah. I've
but
done
more of the painting and
Yeah.
drawing. Do you get drawing?
watercolor and acrylic are kind of my two deals that I like a lot. Or color pencil as well. Sketching.
Is it kind of like just like decompressing for you to kind of be able to do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I spend a lot of my day, especially with like, I mean, communication has a certain level of creativity to it. But so much of my day is spent in analysis, maybe is a good way to put it, where when I paint, it's just flowing.
Mm-hmm.
I get to get out of that analytical part of my brain
Right.
and get into the creative part.
Right.
There are no wrong moves.
Right.
It's just flowing with whatever is coming up and then adjusting. Like, oh, do I want more color here or less here?
Do you paint like outlines of stuff, or do you kind of like do your own freehand blank
Both.
piece of paper?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually do canvas, like hard canvases. But yeah, I've sketched things out before that I would like to paint. And so I have a preconceived idea of what I'm painting. And there are other times, one of my favorite things to do is to close my eyes and just like scribble.
Really? Okay.
And then I open my eyes and I create something out of the scribble.
What do you mean by that? Like you paint the scribbles, or do you? What do you
So
mean by
like
that?
you close your eyes and you just like kind of go like this. It's almost like looking at clouds for shapes. So
Okay.
then I open my eyes and I look at the scribble and I think I see a flower there, or I see a flower and a vase, or I see like a nature scene or a boat. Or
Okay,
I
so you
see-
have like a scribble. You're like, oh man, I see this shape, and
yeah,
then
like when you lay on your back and you
Yeah.
look up at the clouds and you're like,
Right.
that one's a bunny, that's a
Right.
caterpillar.
Right.
Yeah.
so then you kind of like fill it in, or do you start from scratch, or what?
Yeah, I just start going
Okay.
to make whatever I see in the scribble.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
I'll show you. I'll
Yeah.
show
Yeah. That's pretty
you. Okay.
cool. So
Maybe
it's
we
like
have to
a
have a podcast and paint.
podcast and paint, just like me and you.
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
that could be
Oh
cool.
man, I mean I did some art with my kids and that was fun with just the coloring, but I just can't freehand legally draw like a spoon even. That's tough
Yeah.
for me. Or
Well, if you're trying to do realistic, that's difficult.
yeah.
I do a lot of like not realistic stuff.
Okay. Do you like do
Yeah.
cartoons or?
More like I'd say plants is a big thing that I do, landscapes or just straight up abstract.
Okay.
Yeah.
Abstract. What's your like most unique thing that you've painted?
I don't know. What's coming to my mind is I did this 3-piece set, 3-canvas set that a person bought. It was a fertility painting, and it was kind of a scribble that turned into that, and so it's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and somebody bought it, which
wow.
is cool.
Do you sell a lot of your own art or?
No, I
Okay.
don't. I just happened to be chatting with somebody about it, and he was like, "Oh, my wife and I are trying to conceive right now, and we're having a really hard time." And then he wanted to look at the piece, and then he bought it, and he said that they'd hang it in their room, and he hoped it was going to bring good
Really?
luck to them.
Did it? Do you know?
I think it did.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I can't.
That's awesome.
I don't want to
Okay.
say for sure, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I remember hearing afterward that they had gotten pregnant.
Okay.
So that's cool.
Maybe you can paint more for
Yeah.
people who need that help.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever paint like nature scenes or anything like that too? Like you kind of paint like the lake. That'd be a really cool painting that
Yeah.
I would have in my room or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, stuff like that.
Like the sky and stuff. Okay. So you
Yeah.
like painting, nature, any other hobbies that you really enjoy?
I do affirmations, like affirmation cards, tarot cards, oracle cards. Those are fun. That's probably a big hobby that I have. outside
Affirmation
of it.
cards is just kind of reading like positive
Yeah.
words to yourself,
Yeah.
affirmations and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good. I hang out with my daughter. She's my best friend.
Yeah.
So
What do you guys like to do? What's your favorite thing to do with her right now?
probably go to the park.
Yeah.
She's a monkey and she loves the monkey
Yeah.
bars.
Yeah.
She's a lot stronger than I am. She always tries to get me on there and then I'm like, I can't do it.
Okay. Yeah. it is tough for adults. Isn't it?
I'm
Even I
so
have a
much
tough time.
heavier than I used to
Yeah.
be when I was 7 years old.
Right. You can easily just go like that.
I
and
could
stuff.
zip around. I was the monkey queen
Yeah.
too. I
Oh,
remember.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys like play tag or anything at all? Or what do you guys do? at the
We've been
park?
having these like games lately that it's so fun to see. I don't know if you remember when you were little, but there were like games where you were like this and kind of
Wait, what?
I don't know. Just hand games.
Oh, hand games? Okay.
And there'd be some sort of a song along with that.
Sure.
Somebody maybe wins or loses at the end, depending on like who claps last
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yep.
And so it's been fun to see her come home and they have their own version of these games. And then she's teaching me. So we like to do those games. That's fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is it like? So I grew up with a lot of younger siblings. My current sister is like 9 years old, and she was a baby when I was 17. So it's really hard for me to unsee her as a baby. To be honest with you, it's just
Yeah.
even though she's 9, it's super hard for me to accept the fact.
Yeah,
that, like,
yeah,
oh,
that makes
man,
sense.
My last sister's growing up. Yeah, I guess like how's the aging process for your dog? I mean, like, is it like? Has it feel like 7 years or because like all of a sudden I was like my sister, I kind of was with her the other day and I'm like, wow, you're so big now. I'm just like whoa. Like
Yeah.
you got your legs are long and your feet are, it's just like she was always so little,
Yeah.
to me, so
I don't know. Sometimes there are moments like that where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe
Yeah.
it. Like I remember when you were just, this
Yeah.
big, or you just started doing this. And I'm hyper aware of all like the firsts and lasts,
Yeah.
like I remember when, she was like, when she was a baby, she was just covered in black hair. Like
Okay.
she had all this like fuzz all around her. And I literally cried when it all fell off. I was like, oh no, that's so
because
sad.
this is kind of like growing up and stuff.
I was like, I thought it was so cute and
Yeah.
fuzzy. And then I remember thinking it won't be here forever. And it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was gone pretty quick. And it's
Yeah.
just a small thing. Or I remember when she got her very first baby tooth, I was like, oh no, I'm never going to see a gummy smile again. Like, you're always going to have teeth now.
Yeah.
And that's the last of that, a last gummy smile.
Right.
And right now I've been getting a lot of like running hugs,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah.
And I know that has an expiration date that's not too terribly far away. And so I'm like, every time she gives me a running hug, I'm like, oh, it could be the last, but the last one wasn't. And I get excited.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah. To answer your question, it's definitely surreal sometimes, but it is my favorite thing to watch is her become herself. Okay. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, like having her own identity, but you have a big shape in that, obviously, as a mom.
Maybe, yeah. I just want her to be her. Mm-hmm. And so I love our conversations that we have. And yeah, as she gets older, she becomes more and more independent, more and more herself. She has her own ideas and thoughts and what she wants to do and what she likes to do. She's very much into right now making sensory toys. And so like the other day she had slime and
my sister-in-law is making slime.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all over. It's all over the house.
But she took it a step further. She went into the kitchen and got saran wrap and then, put slime in the saran wrap and like wrapped it up and taped it so that it was like this clear squishy thing. Okay. And then she made it into a squishy unicorn. She literally like drew little ears and a horn and eyes like that had eyelashes on them and a little mouth and like cut each piece out and then glued it on to this little squishy thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she made like a watercolor thing the other day. She colored all these markers and then cut it out and put it at the bottom of a pan with a little bit of water and left it overnight. And then the paper absorbed the water and the markers dissipated around and it looked like watercolor. And in the morning she goes, see, Mom, look what I made. Okay. Like stuff like that where I'm like, I'm not directing that whatsoever. Yeah. That's all her. Yeah. So creative.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. I mean, it's so cool to see like what kids are capable of, right? Yeah. Even at a young age, and as they get older, they're going to be like way, way more capable and everything like that. Yeah. So
I can't wait to see who she becomes.
Yeah, that's very exciting. It's just, I mean, the process for growing up so far. She's only 7, but like it's probably been like really quickly for you, or I mean, I don't know. What does that feel like?
It's the fastest, longest thing I've ever done.
Fastest, longest thing.
Okay. Yeah. Because every stage that you're in feels like it's taking forever. And every stage, like the newborn stage, they just don't sleep.
Right.
But it's over like that. But when you're in it, it feels like it's so long because you're so sleep deprived.
Right.
And so it's just that over and over in a different context where it's like, it's going by so fast, but at the same time, whatever stage that you're in kind of feels like it's a lot and a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
Until it's gone. And then you're like, oh, okay, that's gone.
Yeah.
We're on to the next stage now.
Next stage. What stage would you say your daughter's on right now?
She's in that in between of wanting to be more independent and hang out, care a little bit more about what her friends think and things like that, but very much still wants me, where I feel like this next stage is going to be her kind of pulling away a little bit more.
So it's a bittersweet moment, isn't it? Because you want
I'm
to be
still cool.
Yeah.
And it won't be for long.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people that are moms that are the best friends, right? Or they're really close with their mom throughout. Maybe there might be a couple years where, but I'm sure,
Hormones.
Yeah, I'm sure, you guys will always be close. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about her forever drifting away, but.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Yeah, well, it's great having you on the podcast. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up here? Or
I don't know. What do people usually say?
I don't know. Like final message, or I mean, some people say no, there's nothing to say. Some people go up and give me a handshake or something like that.
No, I just want to say thank you to you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I was so excited. I've never been on a podcast before.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So this is my first time. And it was a good time. I feel like it was just great having a conversation with you. Easy to talk to you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you were easy to talk to. Can't believe it's been like it's probably really long, and I'm like, wow, it's been like half hour. So, all right, guys. Well, this is Nathan the Lone Ranger with my podcast Inside the Range. See you next time.